Just for some background info, I am an 18-year-old male currently living in New York. I am 6 feet 4 inches and buff. I've always been the center of ridicule and teasing from a young age due to my size. Just for some context, I stopped growing in the 9th grade, 4 years ago. I was already done with puberty and had a full-on beard and was adult-like. I took advantage of this sometimes too much, which led me losing my virginity in the 9th grade to a girl who was in college. This story took place when I was in the 10th grade. I was lonely after a breakup with my then 7-month-old girlfriend. I was looking for a one-night stand. So I turned to Tinder. I set up a fake profile with my real picture and waited. There was this gorgeous girl whom I matched with. This girl was too good to be true, which gave me the first red flag, yet I went along with it anyway. We exchanged innocent messages and planned to meet at her place the next day at around 9 p.m. I wasn't as excited as you would think because I had some doubts about this girl because I didn't know if she was real. So, 9 p.m. rolls around, and I get ready to go to her place. I mentally prepared myself if anything crazy was going to go down. Before I left, I texted my dad, saying I was going to a friend's house and left. I asked my good friend Isaac, who was 6 years my senior, to drive me since he had a car. He warned me to be cautious as I was. Long story short, he drives me to her apartment, and I ring the doorbell. I hear light footsteps behind the door and high-pitched voice saying, "Be right there." That's when I texted my friend was telling him everything is fine and that he should leave. Boy, was I wrong? The door opens to the girl in the picture. I immediately felt excited, which didn't last for long. On my Tinder account, I wrote that I was 24 when I was only 15. She, not knowing this, swiftly asked me if I wanted a drink. I said I didn't want anything, which visibly made her facial expression turn from happy to pissed off. I realized that maybe I was going to be drugged and I was not about to take any chance, so I asked to go to the bathroom. She then out of the blue said sure, happily. Again, her weird response confirmed my theory in my head. I go to the bathroom and quickly text my friend to come back and pick me up. Then out of the corner of my eye, I saw a figure dressed in all black standing in the shower, trying to hide behind the curtain. I figure he saw me looking him because not even 2 seconds later, he lunged at me. I was scared shitless, also though I was massively taller than this man. He tried pushing me to the floor, yet to no avail. I overpowered him too vastly. I grabbed him by the shirt and looked him in the eye. He was around 5 feet 10 inches, sort of buff, the mid-30s, bald, and seemed to be of Russian descent. I pushed him on the floor and cursed him out because I also know Russian. He tells me to fuck myself, which is when I punched in the face. There I was, a 15-years-old retard in a bathroom with a knocked-out man. I panicked, but I kept my cool and took out my phone and took many photos of the man. By then, my friend texted me and told me he was outside of the building waiting for me, but also by then the girl opened the door to the bathroom and started to scream. I pushed her with all of my power and sprinted the hell out of that apartment. When I got to my friend's car, I frantically explained to him what happened. Only then I realized I could have been drugged, killed, or worse. I took screenshots of her profile and messages between us. Even though I had all the proof in the world to lock those assholes up, I didn't because I was that scared of my parents and lying to them. The moral of the story: be very cautious when dating online. Story 2. I am a single Christian woman in my 20s, and since I don't have many friends in my local church, I decided to sign up to a website where I could make friends online. Some of the site members also used it for dating, which was okay with me as I was open to possibilities. Soon I met a guy there who seemed nice, and we had some interests in common, and after a few months of friendship, we began to Skype since we lived far from each other, so we could not meet up in person. We started chatting, and he seemed okay, but now and then he would pause, go quiet and just stare into the webcam. When I told him it was creepy and asked why he was doing it, he replied that he enjoys sharing the silence. I wasn't sure if it was normal, and since around the same time, I was busy dating someone else, I avoided the guy for several months. However, when I broke up with my ex, I was feeling lonely and decided I wouldn't mind chatting to a friend to take my mind off things. The guy happened to be the only person available. We ended up talking every couple of days for about 2 weeks, and I even started getting used to the uncomfortable silence and staring, when things turned weirder. During our conversations, I found out that the guy was in his 30s and still a virgin, and we both agreed that we believe in sex only after marriage. So it came to me as a surprise when one day he confessed that he has a fetish for girls in school uniforms and asked me if he could send me an erotic schoolgirl outfit with a very short mini skirt because he wanted to see me wearing it. I said no since I don't like wearing revealing clothes. Another time, he showed up in his bed on the webcam, only wearing his underwear, and began to ask me more dirty questions. I just laughed and made a few jokes, and then tried to change the subject. However, he was not very responsive to the conversation, instead preferring to stare at his screen into the webcam, grinning, while making repetitive motions with his hand under his bed cover. I didn't want to see it, so I made an excuse and left. I should have stopped entirely chatting to him after that, but the next day and the day after, he repeatedly texted me, wanting to go on the webcam. Since I was bored and lonely, I asked him to promise me he wouldn't be naked and do dirty things, and he agreed. For a couple of days, we managed to carry on chatting, but soon after he did it again, and this time it was much worse. First, he asked me to touch myself and send him a recording of it. I refused, explaining to him that in case my computer ever gets hacked, I do not want such things to be seen anywhere on the internet. "Oh, but you don't have to make a video. I just want to listen to the noises you make," he replied. Again, I refused, saying that it made me uncomfortable. But he would not take no for an answer. He took off his underwear and began touching himself as if he was stroking a pet while grinning at me with a big, creepy smile. I told him I had to go and terminated the video call. That same evening, I sent him a long message explaining why I don't think we would be compatible with each other and said that I found him disrespectful and want to stop seeing him. He responded, saying that I am stuck in the past, only thinking about my ex, who used me, even though the guy had no idea what went on between me and my ex. At that, I got angry and told him not to speak to me about it again. So, pervy guy, let's not meet again.
Story 3.
This all happened when I was 19. I'm not the best looking dude, so I've never had much luck with women, and I ended up on Tinder. I wasn't having much success there either until like the third month of using it when a blonde woman named Katie messaged me. She was pretty enough that I just dismissed her as a bot. It wasn't until 3 days later that she messaged me again, which was odd because bots rarely message more than once. I clicked on her chat and replied, then looked at her profile. What I saw was pretty generic, but definitely wasn't a bot's profile. We had been talking for like a month when she proposed the idea that I come to see her. I was pretty reluctant as she lived nearly 8 hours from me by car, but I had to admit I really did like her quite a bit, and I had been thinking about asking her if I could come to see her for a while now. After a bit more badgering from her, I finally said that I would take the drive to go see her. At this point, I had no reason to doubt she was who she said she was. We had video chatted every other week, and called most days. I just assumed I got fortunate. Things did get a little weird on the way there though. She kept messaging me, asking me where I was and making sure I was still coming. At some points, when I took more than 30 minutes to respond, she sends me a slew of annoying texts. Admittedly, I had chalked this all up to her being nervous about me coming to see her. I was pretty nervous too, so I couldn't blame her. I had a hard time finding the house at first. The directions she gave me were pretty confusing, and it was back through a series of gravel and dirt roads and a large thicket of trees. It was still about midday when I came onto an old-looking house. A window on the second floor was boarded up, but it didn't look abandoned, just worse for wear. Katie's red buggy that she liked to talk about was parked in front of the garage. I took my phone and texted her that I was here. She only sent a smiley face in return. When I got out of my car to go knock on the door, I noticed someone was looking at me from one of the second floor windows. I found it a little creepy but figured it was just her father or something. She had told me that he comes to stay with her every now and again, so I ignored it and knocked on her door. She answered with a smile and even gave me a kiss, which surprised me, and I followed her inside. We sat down on her couch and started talking about our plans when I asked her about her dad. "You didn't tell me your dad was here," I said. "Was that going to be a surprise or?" Katie looked confused and told me that her dad wasn't here. I still thought she was keeping up the act, and I told her that she didn't have to keep pretending and that I had seen him looking at me through the upstairs window. Katie went pale and said that we had to get out of there, now. We both ran out to our cars, and when I questioned Katie, she informed me that her dad wasn't there and that she had been home alone until I showed up. I called the police, and while I was on the phone giving the address, Katie gasped and pointed to the window where I had seen the guy last. He was looking at us from out the window again. I got a better look at him, and he seemed older and frail. Almost like he hadn't eaten anything in a while. He left the window after he saw that we saw him. The police took half an hour to show up, and the whole time Katie was crying and mumbling about how she was an idiot for not keeping her doors locked. When the police finally did show up, one started asking me and Katie questions, and the other two searched the house. They came back out a little later and told Katie and me that, while they didn't find anyone, they did find that the back door was hanging open. Whoever it was had run out into the woods, but the cops were sure the house was empty. After the cops left, Katie asked me to stay the night because she took scared to be in her house alone right now. I gladly did, and we slept downstairs on the couch as Katie's bed was the room next to the one the man had been in. Katie had also brought out the shotgun that her father had given her, but she never used it. I told her it was fine, the man's gone, but she insisted, saying she'd feel safer if we had it out. I'm glad she did. Later that night, I was still wide awake, watching TV. Katie had somehow managed to fall asleep. From the kitchen, I had the sound of a doorknob being turned. At this point, I wasn't even scared, I was just pissed. I flipped on the light in the kitchen and pointed the gun at the kitchen door, and there he was. The guy that had been in the house before was standing on the other side of the glass door. He looked shocked, and I'm glad we had locked the door. The man unfroze and yet again ran into the woods. I woke up Katie and told her what happened and called the police yet again. When they arrived, they did a sweep of the woods and found no one yet again. They told Katie and me that it'd probably be a good idea to stay somewhere else for the night. Katie and I said our goodbyes. She was going to stay at her friend's house, and I was going home. I left a little after what Katie did. I was on the phone with my brother telling him about what happened. My headlights were on. As I was talking, something caught my eye. That fucking man was standing at the corner of the house just watching me. I gunned it out of there and didn't even bother calling the police again. But I did text Katie, and she said she was going to call them back. I don't think Katie ever even went back to that house alone.